Hey everybody, I am Brady Briggs. Welcome to another episode of the Combat Logic.
What's up, guys? Brady Briggs here to preview UFC 274 going down this weekend, May 7th, 2022 at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona. Starting off the card is Journey Newson. That should be interesting to see him come back because he came to the UFC with a lot of hype and he has gone winless in his first three fights. One of them was overturned. He actually did TKO Domingo Pilarde, but he tested positive for marijuana and his win was taken away. So he's 1-2 in the UFC, let's be honest. He got knocked out pretty brutally in his last fight, though, by Randy Costa. And, yeah, he's fighting Fernie Garcia. I don't know who he is, but I'm excited to see it because Journey Newson's a part of it. See, Francisco Trinaldo is co-headlining the early prelims against Danny Roberts. Now, Danny Roberts is one of the better win a fight, lose a fight, win a fight, lose a fight, just go back and forth. He's one of the better fighters like that in the sport. He's capable of beating most welterweight talents in the world on any given night. His striking is so good. He is a former professional boxer. He's got some really good kicks to go along with it. He's got decent offensive submissions too. He submitted Nathan Coy in his UFC debut with a triangle choke. That's something I did not see coming. Yeah. He's on a 2-fight win streak over Zalim Amadiev and Ramazan Ameev. And then Trinaldo, I believe, is coming off a win over Dwight Grant. Yes, he is. Trinaldo, kind of like Arlovsky, has had a bit of a career resurgence at 43 years old, too. He is 4-1 in his last 5. And he's been a dominant force since he's been in the UFC. He's given a lot of people a lot of problems. Like, he's 12-1 as a kickboxer, even though he's kind of untraditional with it. He does have very good striking. He is strong as a fucking ox, and he's got good grappling. He's 27-8 as a professional. Roberts is 18-5. This should be a good fight. I am really looking forward to this one. Blagoy Ivanov is fighting Marcos Rogerio de Lima in the early preliminary main event. Now, de Lima started off his UFC career with an 11-2-1 record. He won his first 2 fights, both by knockout in the first round, like early in the first round, too. Neither of them made it 2 minutes. And then he won one, lost one, lost one, and did that for 10 straight fights. So after winning his first 2 UFC fights, he went 5-5 through his next 10. Since then, he's on the second 2-fight win streak of his promotional tenure, coming off wins over Maurice Green and Ben Rothwell. He finished Ben Rothwell in 32 seconds of his last fight last November. So it's good to see him get back on track of sorts. And then Blagoy Ivanov is a multi-time World Series of Fighting and PFL heavyweight champion, but he's coming off back-to-back defeats. He came to the UFC with a 16-1 record. He lost to Junior Dos Santos. Then he beat Ben Rothwell and Tai Tuivasa. Like, Tuivasa's on top of the world right now. And he lost split decisions to both Derek Lewis and Augusto Sakai in his last 2 fights. They both could have gone his way. I think the Lewis fight was a little more leaning toward Lewis, but it was so close. And then I thought he beat Sakai. So he could easily be 20-2 right now rather than 18-4. This is going to be a good fight. That's headlining the early prelims. Then, dude, this is such a stacked card. Brandon Royval kicks off the regular prelims against Matt Schnell. Now, Schnell has had a lot of success in the UFC, but he's also had some falters. So he came with a 10-2 record. He got KO'd in his first 2 fights, okay? Both in the first round. And then he won 4 straight. Then he got KO'd by Alexandre Pantoja. Then he beat Tyson Nam, lost a decision to Rogerio Bontorin, though it was overturned. So he definitely had some hiccups early on, and his chin is a bit suspect. But he's got really good grappling, and he's got pretty technical striking, too. And then Brandon Royval, man, this kid is just so fun to watch. Like, oh, my God, he's so fun to watch. So he's 13-6, I believe, coming off a split decision over Rogerio Bontorin. Technically the last man to defeat Schnell. No, Brandon Royval is one of the funnest fighters in the entire sport to watch. He really is. Like, his striking is so good. His scrambling abilities are so good. His submissions are even better. Like, I am so excited to see this fight. I'm so excited to see Brandon Royval's future. Like, he's like, I'm not kidding, man. He's so fun to watch. Like, watch this fight. Macy Chiasson is facing Norma Dumont in her featherweight debut, I believe. No, she returned to featherweight in her last fight. And she actually missed weight. That's surprising because she was a bantamweight most of her career. She's facing Norma Dumont. Hopefully Norma can get it. I like Macy too. She's got a lot of potential, but Norma is like my favorite female fighter, and she's so good, man. She's so good. She's got good takedown. She's got wicked stand up. Like, man, she's a lot of fun to watch. With a win over Chiasson here, she might be challenging for the featherweight belt. Randy Braun is facing Chaos Williams in the preliminary co-main event. That's going to be a good fight. Andre Fialho is already coming back, it looks like. He just knocked out Miguel Beza like less than a month ago. And he's coming back to headline the prelims against Cameron Van Camp, who I've never heard that name before, so I'm assuming he's making his UFC debut. Yes, he is making his UFC debut. He's on a 4-fight win streak, 3-fight submission streak. Yeah, and he's facing Fialho. That should be good. And then the main card, man, what a main card this is. Donald Cerrone kicks off the main card against Joe Lauzon, which neither have ever won a belt, but they're both absolute legends in the sport. Like, they have more performance bonuses than just about anybody. Donald Cerrone holds so many fucking records in this sport, and Joe Lauzon held a number of them before too, and he still does. He still holds some records, but he hasn't fought as much recently, so he hasn't been able to add on to them. But let's be honest, Cerrone has been out for quite a while too. I want to say he's been out for like almost a year because he's winless in his last 6 fights. Yeah, he has. May 8th, 2021. So it'll be 364 days since his last fight when he steps in the octagon. I don't really want to see Cerrone fight anymore. It's obvious he doesn't have it like he used to. He just doesn't have that killer instinct on the feet. I'm not going to say he's uncoordinated, but it's not the same as watching him 5 years ago. Same could be said for Joe Lauzon, though. And Joe Lauzon and Donald Cerrone, they're literally perfect return opponents for one another. Like, I'm surprised this fight wasn't made before. So thankful that it's made now, though. We're going to see it on Saturday night. Mauricio Shogun Hua is facing Ovin St. Preux for a second time, which, if anyone remembers, St. Preux went into their first fight a pretty sizable underdog and knocked Hua out in like less than a minute. Yeah, he did 34 seconds. He knocked Shogun out. And Ovin St. Preux is one of those guys that can beat most people on any given night, much like Danny Roberts, but he also does lose a good amount. He's coming off of 2 defeats in which he was knocked out in both of which were in the second round. And Shogun hasn't fought since his rematch to Paul Craig, where he was TKO'd in the second round. That was in November of 2020. Honestly, I thought he retired after that, but I guess he's coming back to face Ovin St. Preux again. This should be an interesting rematch. And then Michael Chandler versus Tony Ferguson. This is another perfect matchup to make because Ferguson, after going 15-1 in the lightweight division, after going on a 12-fight win streak, he's now lost his last 3 straight. While Chandler, after knocking out Dan Hooker in his UFC debut, he's now on a 2-fight skid. Both of them have lost to the best in the world. Ferguson lost to Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, and Beneil Dariush. Chandler lost to Gaethje and Charles Oliveira. So they both lost to the same 2 fighters in their last 2 fights. That should be really interesting. I think Chandler has it a little more than Ferguson. No, Ferguson just did not look good in his last fight. I wouldn't say he looked bad against Oliveira because Oliveira just dominated him the whole time. But in his last fight with Dariush, he just kind of like Donald Cerrone, he's over the hill. And there's something to be said about that too, because Tony Ferguson versus Donald Cerrone, that was the last time either of those fighters looked good. Neither of them have won a fight since fighting each other. Some wars just change people. Rose Namajunas is aiming to defend her strawweight belt against Carla Esparza, and it's about time Carla gets her shot. Like, I was really worried that the UFC was going to wait too long to where no one even cared that Esparza was on a 5-fight win streak anymore. And I'm so glad they didn't, because Carla Esparza went into her first fight with Rose Namajunas and both of their UFC debuts for the UFC Strawweight Championship. Rose was a huge favorite to win that fight, and she just got absolutely mauled and then submitted in the 3rd round. Esparza loses her title in her next fight and then goes, win loss for a little while Rose works her way up the division. Now Esparza's on a 5-fight win streak and Rose is the champion. So this should be very interesting. Something to be said about Rose. There are a couple parallels on her record here. She went into her fight with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who was just absolutely dominating everybody, the best female fighter in the world at that point. She knocked her out in the first round and then defended her belt against her via 5-round decision. She then went into her next title defense against Jessica Andrade in a fight she was looking better than ever in, got picked up and slammed on her head, and she was knocked unconscious considering and lost her belt. She then came back a little over a year later to rematch Andrade and beat her. And then she knocked out Weili Zhang in the first round, who beat Andrade for the title. So she then took the title back again by first round knockout and then defended it again by 5-round decision. Her last 6 fights have showed 3 opponents. She fought Joanna, Andrade, and Weili. Now she's going into another rematch against another familiar face, though they haven't fought since 2014 was their first fight. This should be super interesting. And then the main event, we got Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. Man, there's so many different ways this could go. I think it's safe to say either Gaethje knocks Oliveira out or Oliveira finishes Gaethje with a number of things. Oliveira has shown a tendency to get hurt and to even get finished after getting hurt in his career. But when he gets hurt now, he bites down and gets in their grill and uses his length and just starts piecing him up. Like, I really noticed a change in him when he fought David Tamer, who's a 39-1 pro kickboxer. And he was absolutely eating him alive on the feet. He almost knocked him out a number of times before he decided to jump on his neck and choke him out instead. That's when I really realized, whoa, like, he is improving drastically. Following that, he got 2 straight knockouts, his first knockouts in the UFC. For those of you that don't know, he won 5 of his first 6 fights by knockout, to our surprise, because he was only a jiu-jitsu guy at that time. And he did some of them at welterweight against future UFC fighters. But his last 4 wins, Kevin Lee, 3rd round guillotine choke. Tony Ferguson, 3-round decision, even though if that first round lasted 10 more seconds, he would have got the armbar. Michael Chandler in his title fight, former multi-time Bellator champion, knocked him out in the 2nd round. And then Dustin Poirier, he submitted in the 3rd round, which is just unrealistically impressive. And he's won his last 10 fights in a row. While Gaethje is coming in on a 1-fight win streak, though he fought Khabib Nurmagomedov right before that. Since he lost his first 2 fights, went from 18-0 to 18-2, we've seen a real change in Gaethje's game. And man, he's evolved so beautifully too. He fights a lot like he used to. He's just a little more reserved. He picks his shots a little better. His shot selection is about as good in this sport as you can get. His leg kicks are nasty. I can't wait to see this fight. Like, it's the perfect fight to make for the lightweight title right now. And yeah, it could go a number of ways. I can't wait to see it. So I think that about wraps up for UFC 274. Thank you all for watching. Have a good one.